This video is the story of the disaster of painting my fuselage. If you want to hear about that disaster, stick around. I started this story a little bit in episode 116 if you want to go back and watch the previous video, but here's the short story. When I originally painted my fuselage, I painted it in a semi-gloss green. That was supposed to be the lighter of two greens in my camouflage paint scheme. Well, that color turned out to be a little darker than I wanted, so I found another lighter color to paint the camo on the airplane. So I masked off all the areas I wanted to spray in the camo or the lighter green, and I sprayed that lighter green, and when it was all done and I took all the masking paper off, I absolutely hated how it looked. Now, part of the reason why is there was very little difference between the two greens. When I sprayed the new green on a test piece and I held it up to the fuselage, it did look different. When I sprayed it on the fuselage, it was very, very close to the original green. So it's actually from far away, you could almost not even tell that it was two different color greens. The other problem I had was the original green that I sprayed was a semi-gloss, and the new lighter green that I sprayed turned out to be flat. And so you had two different sheens or glossy levels on the airplane, which looked terrible. The other thing I didn't like was with the flat and a semi-gloss, it made it look like it was primer. It didn't look like a finish on the airplane, it looked like primer. And here's the problem, is even though I wanted this to look like an old World War II airplane, you know, this is a very, very expensive airplane that I've spent years building. I don't want it to I want it to have the theme of a World War II plane, but I don't want it to look like a beat up old airplane. I want it to look like a brand new, very nice airplane. So I had two options. I didn't like how the fuselage looked, but at that point I could continue painting the tail pieces and the wings in the same paints and camo and finish the airplane that way and then not really like the finish. Or I could start completely over. To start completely over, it would mean I'd have to completely strip the paint off of the fuselage. Well, of course, I had to start over. So I bought some paint stripper, stripped the paint off the fuselage, and took it back down to bare metal. Well, now I had a new dilemma on my hands. I had the fuselage stripped, I had it reprimed, but I didn't yet have a new paint scheme for it. I did come up with this silver scheme, which I liked, but I didn't love it. And I think the reason why is because I really wanted this airplane to be green. But I did know that I did not want to do the semi-gloss. Even though this is a World War II airplane, I wanted it shiny and nice and brand new looking. So now, with my new scheme, it's all one color. It's the same green as my interior. I absolutely love the green. It's shiny. I love the new paint. Here is my new paint scheme that I'm using. Now, it's very simple, really. The whole airplane's one color, other than the tail and the nose. And the reason I've put a British roundel on it is because I was looking at a lot of Spitfire paint schemes. And I really liked the big numbers and letters on the side of the fuselage. And I thought the British roundel was really colorful. So I chose to make this one a British airplane. So that's my scheme. I have the fuselage pretty much done. Let's turn the camera around and I'll show you. All right, guys, here is the fuselage painted. I've got the graphics on it. It's super shiny, and I love it. Well, I'll talk a little bit about the paint. I want to talk about my paint booth, and then I want to go through the airplane and give you some tips that I found in putting this thing back together, and just some of the things that I've changed on here and what I'm doing. First of all, the paint. I will say in general that I'm very happy with it. Is it absolutely perfect? Of course not. I painted it myself. It's nowhere near perfect. There's a little bit of orange peel in the paint, and there's one section that's actually particularly bad with orange peel, and that's right under the horizontal stab on the left side. And I think the reason I've got orange peel there is because I went a little bit too slow or too fast with the paint gun, and it didn't lay down enough paint. So you get a little bit of orange peel when that happens. If you go a little bit too slow with a paint gun, it's very easy to get a run in the paint. So you really have to find that perfect balance of how much material you're putting down and the speed in which you're doing it. But like I said, I didn't touch this paint at all. I didn't sand it, I didn't buff it. It's exactly as it is from the paint gun. tiny bit of orange peel on it. In fact, what's really interesting is the very bottom of the airplane is nearly perfect, which is weird because I was laying on the floor holding the paint gun like this, trying to get around all the little angles and stuff on the bottom of the airplane. But for some reason, that came out amazingly smooth and perfect, almost perfect. The sides of the fuselage look really good with just a little bit of orange peel on it. Like I said, I'm happy with it. It is what it is. I'm not a professional painter. It's the best job I can do, and I'm going to live with all the little flaws that are in it. So if you ever see this airplane in an air show, don't come within like 10 feet of it because then you'll think it looks really, really good. Starting at the front of the airplane, when I took my nose gear off to repaint it, I repositioned the collars and the rubber shock absorbers on there. So they are in the correct position now, and that is permanently installed. But one of the things I wanted to show you down here is that you might notice I'm missing 3 bolts on the front. And that is because I've left these off on purpose because I am making a different bracket here for a tow bar. Zenith does have a tow bar kit you can get where you drill a hole through here, then you drill another hole that way, and you drill a bunch of holes in the bottom of here, which I didn't want to do. If you're familiar with the Piper tow bars, they have like 2 little hooks that come down like that and go into this little plate with holes in it. And that's what I'm doing on here. I ordered that tow bar, which unfortunately is back ordered until June. But once I get that tow bar, I just need to get the spacing of those 2 holes. And I'm going to have a plate. It's going to be on the bottom here. It's going to stick out maybe just an inch with the 2 holes in it for the tow bar. And then it'll get bolted with these 3 bolts. So once I get that plate made, I can install it and finish putting the bolts in there. Now you guys might remember, I built this airplane with dual brakes and I had it set up for dual throttles. I wanted to do that because a while ago I had this idea of maybe when this airplane's done, I can start a business doing transition training in the Super Duty and then also the Cruiser. Well, over the last year or so I've been thinking, I don't want to do that for various reasons. I don't want the liability of doing it. I don't want my airplane getting beat up. And I don't have the time to do it. I don't need the money from doing it. So I just don't think I'm ever going to use this airplane or the Cruiser to do transition training in. And if I'm not going to do transition training, I don't need any controls or brakes and stuff on the right-hand side of the airplane. So what I've done is I have removed the dual brakes and I've plugged up the hole here for the dual throttles. If we look inside the airplane here, I removed all of the rudder pedals here and I drilled out the rivets in the back here, took off the pedals, and I removed the actuators because obviously I don't need those. And then I've simplified the brake system. This is the Aircraft Specialty single brake system, which I originally had just to make the video on how to install the single brakes. And I changed it to the dual brakes because, like I said, that's what I originally wanted. But I've put everything back to the single brakes. And if you're wondering what it cost you in weight to add dual brakes, the 2 pedals that I took off, the actuators, the I don't know why I keep saying fuel lines, the brake lines and the hardware were exactly 2 pounds. So I've removed 2 pounds from the airplane by going to single brakes. And then if we look at our throttle over here, this is where the throttle on the right side of the airplane would be. This is a plug I had from IKEA furniture that happened to fit nicely in that hole. So I've just plugged up that hole and I won't have a throttle on the right side. Now to finish installing the brake lines, I have these 2 lines here that come from the parking brake valve and get connected to here. But before I do that, I have to tighten these nuts on here. And I need 2 people for that because I need one person up top to tighten a nut. And then I need me down on the bottom to hold the fitting. So, the problem with living by yourself and not being married is there's nobody here to help me with this. And it's kind of frustrating because it's really holding me up. I can't connect these lines and I can't tighten the ones on the bottom until I have these installed. But everybody's busy right now, so I have to wait until I can get somebody to come over and then I can tighten that. I'll put these lines on there and then that will be all done. On the bottom of the airplane, once I tighten these fittings, I'll tighten these. And then I have these custom fittings I had made a while ago if you watched the video a year or so ago. But again, I need somebody on the inside of the airplane to turn the screws while I hold these these two in place. But you can see these ones are installed here. They look great. They do a great job of holding the brake line. And then it comes out with this clamp right here, and then it comes down to the brake calipers. I just need to figure out how I'm going to secure this line to the leg. To be honest with you, I haven't really figured that out yet, but it probably does need to be secured somehow here so it isn't just flopping around. I probably just need one connection somewhere in the middle, so I'll have to figure out a good looking way to do that. You can see where my brake line comes down and goes into this elbow that's in the brake caliper. And one of the things I wanted to show you guys, just hopefully to save you a little bit of hassle, is that I had all of this built, you know, the brakes all built and the wheel on, but I didn't have this installed yet. And then what I found out is when I went to install this, this gets screwed into the caliper here. When this blue fitting turns around, it hits the disc and you can't spin it in. So I had to remove the brakes, loosen the nut on the other side of the axle, and slide the wheel back just enough to be able to spin this in. So what you might want to do is before you build everything here, make sure you have this fitting in your caliper. And the way I have it is at a 90-degree angle. You can see it comes straight out like that, straight into the brake line and up. If you wanted to, you could angle it a little bit that way, but it doesn't really matter. I just kind of liked it coming straight out. And then we got the 90-degree elbow on here. These brake lines are available from Kitplane Enthusiast. They're built by Aircraft Specialty, but we have listed on the website complete brake line kits for you, all ready to go. So this is kind of what the brakes look like on the bottom of the airplane. You can see how nice and shiny that paint is on the bottom. It looks amazing. I also have that's my transponder antenna, and then the one on the other side over there is the ADS-B antenna. So those two are hooked up. I have not painted the hatch for the bottom yet, so I'll have to do that. But the next thing I have to do is crawl in here and start getting the elevator cables through there. There's a couple electrical things I need to hook up, so I'm not in a real hurry to paint that hatch and close it up. These 4 screws right here hold the autopilot servo in its mount. And I have the Aero LED beacon on the bottom of the airplane. When it's on and flashing, it's red. I'm still working on putting the graphics on the right side of the fuselage. But in the back here, I have my rudder cable exits riveted in. I do need to make a nylon insert in here because I don't want the steel cable just riding in an aluminum tube. So there's just like my cruiser, there's a nylon insert that goes in here. I have the tail skid mount riveted in place. I just have to paint and install the actual tail skid. The horizontal stabilizer is bolted in place. I put this in here, I want to drill one hole down in here and have a sheet metal screw that holds these two together. Even though this will be secured here, I just don't want it flopping around at all. So I'll secure that, or I'll put a sheet metal screw in there to hold these two together, and then I can paint those two pieces. And I did show these on a previous video, probably a year or so ago, but this just keeps as much airflow as I can from going in between here and causing a lot of drag. Now, when I did the checkers on the tail, and I wish my camera could get a good video of this, I got a smudge up here, of the yellow. The yellow is much darker than it actually looks in a video. I don't know why it's coming out so washed out, but I really wanted to paint the checkers on there, but I know my skills, and I know that if I tried to paint that, it would all be screwed up. So I just used vinyl for the black squares. I need to finish putting the squares on there yet, and I have not primed or painted the rudder. That's gonna probably be next. The elevator is not on here yet because I have to paint these two pieces here that actually hold the elevator. Once I do put the elevator on, I can start running the cables from the back all the way up to the front and get those installed. The graphics on this side, obviously, are done. They look really nice. Now, some people have asked me, well, not some people, my dad, he's the only one I've showed this to so far, but he asked if there's any significance to the TJ. You might remember in the picture, I had KE on here for Kitplane Enthusiast. But what's really hard to do is put the vinyl over the rivets. It takes a lot of work with a heat gun and a squeegee and things like that to do. So I wanted to see if I could find letters that would not go over any rivets here. And you can see I have a line of rivets vertical there, and then there's a diagonal one here. So the T and the J just kind of jumped out at me because I could put both of those on there without going over any rivets. So that's the significance of the T and J. It just fit nice. Now on the top of the airplane, I still have to paint the little fiberglass fairing I made for the front of the dorsal fin. All of the antennas are installed. That's the ELT, the COM, and the Garmin GPS. Now, one of the next things I need to do also is install this top window. And I think that's going to take a couple people to do. So I'll wait till I get some help and get that top window installed. So this is everything so far. Oh, and I'm going to show you this right here. If I can shine the light on it the right way, there is a run I got right here. Can you see that run? And I think this one here, I think that's big enough to where I'm going to sand and buff that one out. But otherwise, I'm pretty happy with the paint on there. Tiny bit of orange peel, but it looks pretty good. Certainly good enough to not strip it and redo it. Well, the other thing I was going to show you too is I have this side. This is all riveted on here, ready to go. That one, the right side is done. But when I came around to the left side, I didn't rivet this because I realized I still have to drill out this hole right here. In fact, this is also just finger tight in here too, my fuel fitting. Because I don't know if I'm going to come with a drill bit this way or I'm going to come this way. But if I do come from the front, this might be in the way a little bit. So it's too late for that side. It's already installed. But I think I can get the drill bit in there just fine on that side. But I just decided to wait before I rivet this, just in case I want to remove it for when I drill that hole. The other reason I didn't rivet this on yet is I'm probably going to repaint this piece because the way I had it hanging when I painted it, it was kind of flopping around as I was trying to paint it, and I'm not real happy with how the paint came out on it. So that piece there, I don't think I need to strip it. I might just kind of sand it down, scuff it up, and just put another thin coat of paint on it. Well, so there it is, guys. That is the update on the Super Duty. It looks a lot different than the last time you saw it, and I got to tell you, I'm so happy with this. I'm really, really happy with my decision to use glossy paint. I just think it looks so much better than the paint that I had on it before. So lots of little things to do yet. I'm not going to put the side windows in until the very, very last thing, because just with working in here and connecting things up and getting to the inside, it's just a lot easier not to have the windows in there. But like I said, I do want to put that top window on. I need to finish up the graphics on the other side. And then, like I said, I'm looking forward to getting these little pieces painted and then getting the elevator installed. The elevator is painted, by the way. I just need those pieces on here, which actually I did paint. But again, when I had these hanging up, they were just flopping all around from the pressure of the air gun. So it didn't get a nice finish on it. So what I did was I sanded it down, and then I'm going to just spray another thin coat of paint on them. Got some access covers there to paint. So just some little things to do yet. After I do get the elevator installed in there, I really would like to start working on the rudder just to get it installed, because it will look really cool sitting there with the checkered rudder. Well, everybody, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the update on my Super Duty. I would like to ask you to please subscribe to the channel. Please click down below and give the video a thumbs up so we can share these videos with as many people as possible. With that said, I'm getting back to work, and I will see you on the next video.